Hello. Today we're going to be covering section 4.1, which is all about the different types of statistical studies. Specifically, we'll be focusing on the two main categories, observational and experimental studies. We'll explore what makes them different and how those differences impact the conclusions we can draw from their results. So, why do we need to spend a whole section on study design? It's because the design of a study is the foundation for getting reliable and valid results. The way a study is structured directly influences the kinds of conclusions we are allowed to make. If you start with a bad design, it doesn't matter how well you analyze the data, your results will likely be misleading. Let's start with observational studies. In this type of study, researchers simply observe subjects and measure variables without any interference or intervention. We're just watching what happens naturally. These are very common in fields like public health and epidemiology. They are often used as an ethical alternative when it isn't possible or moral to conduct an experiment, for example, studying the effects of smoking on lung cancer. There are three main types of observational studies. First, we have cross-sectional studies, which are like a snapshot. They collect data from a population at a single point in time. Second are case control studies. These are retrospective, meaning they look back in time to compare a group with a certain condition to a group without it to find potential causes. And third, there are cohort studies. These are prospective. They follow a group of individuals over a period of time to see how certain factors affect their outcomes. Now let's switch gears to experimental studies. The key difference here is that researchers actively assign treatments to subjects. Because the researchers are controlling the intervention, these are the only studies that can be used to determine causality. That is, to say that one thing causes another. The gold standard in this category is the randomized controlled trial, or RCT. A perfect, recent example of an experimental study is a COVID-19 vaccine trial. In these trials, participants were randomly assigned to one of two groups, one that received the vaccine and one that received a placebo. Researchers then tracked the outcome, which was the rate of COVID-19 infection in each group. Because the study was controlled and randomized, researchers could make valid claims about the vaccine causing a reduction in infection rates. So to quickly compare the two, observational studies are good for observing real-world situations. They involve no control from the researcher and are generally cheaper to conduct. Experimental studies, on the other hand, take place in a controlled environment, are often costly, but provide more rigorous results. The choice between them really depends on the research goals, feasibility, and of course, ethical considerations. No study is perfect. There are always threats to the validity of the results. Some common issues include confounding variables, which are outside factors that can affect the outcome and muddle the results. Selection or measurement bias, where the way subjects are chosen or how data is collected skews the results. And in experiments, non-compliance, where participants in the treatment groups don't follow the instructions. In our software labs, you can see how these studies are structured using simulated data. For example, in Excel, you can use randomization functions to practice assigning subjects to groups for an experiment. In a program like R, you can simulate entire groups, calculate their means, and create visualizations. This will help highlight the structural differences between how you would set up data for an observational versus an experimental study. Okay, now it's your turn to practice. I want you to work in pairs with the study summaries I'm handing out. Your task is to read each summary and classify the study as either observational or experimental. Be prepared to explain your reasoning for each one. Stop the video and complete the activity. When you're ready, you may continue the video. Alright, let's bring it all together. The most important takeaway today is that observational studies do not equal causation. Finding a link between two things doesn't mean one caused the other. It is only through well-designed experiments that we can draw stronger conclusions about causality. But remember, both study designs have a proper time and place in the world of research. As we conclude, please take a moment to answer this question. Which study type is harder to conduct well, and why? Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.